Hello there, and thank you for watching the next video of web penetration testing with Kali Linux. In this video, we're going to talk about SQL injection vulnerability. So SQL injection is a very common type of attack on web applications, which is basically using a vulnerability on a web application to gain control or get access to a database. And from there, obviously, we can just get access to the information on the database or basically change the information on the database. There is another type of SQL injection attack which is called blind SQL injection, which is when SQL injection, standard SQL injection, doesn't really return the data or the content that we need on the application side, and we basically need to find a different way. And with that, we're sending true or false statements. We're sending different queries to application and try to figure out some information based on the responses from the application, whether it is true or false. So that's kind of blind SQL injection. So to demonstrate how SQL injection works on DVWA, we need to log into our DVWA web interface with our standard password. And you can see that I have a command on the screen, one quote or 0 equal quote 0. So that's the command that we have, and I have a SQL command at the bottom of that, which I'm gonna go back to it and explain in a second. But let's go to our DVWA and log in with our standard username and password. So first thing to make sure is our security is set to low, which is, so it's fine. So now we go to SQL injection section of DVWA. So here basically is waiting for the user to enter a user ID, and based on that user ID, the application is going to return some results. So I'm just going to type user ID 1 and submit. So you see that as soon as I do user ID 1, the first username is admin and the last name is admin. I do user ID 2, and you see that the user ID 2 is Gordon Brown. User ID 3 is going to be hack me. So you can see that based on the user ID that you put in there, it's actually returning different things. So I'm just going to go ahead and type what we talked about, or 1 quote 1. So we just type this statement here, as you can see, and click submit. So as soon as we do that, you see that it's actually returning all usernames and passwords for us. So the reason for this is the application doesn't understand that we're just passing a part of SQL command to it, and it just uses the whole thing as user ID and adds that basically to the SQL command which is called on the application itself. So the result is basically a complete SQL command, and it would return all the usernames, all the first names and last names from that table. So we're going to go back to our slide here. So that's the command that we put in there. So you can see by this, when we say or 0 equals 0, we're basically just passing a true statement to the condition that we have on the SQL. So this could be or 0 equals 0 or 1 equal 1, it really doesn't matter. Anything or a true statement is going to be true anyway. So that's basically how we get the complete information from the SQL command. So the complete command looks like something that you can see at the bottom. Select first name, last name from users table, where user ID equal 1. So until this point, before we start the red line, is when the application works normal. So it's just waiting to receive that one as ID, that one number 1 or number 2 or whatever you put in there as ID, and it would just work perfectly fine. But the problem is we're just adding this addition to the parameter as well. So when we do this, then when application passes the command to the SQL basically database, it's just passing a complete SQL command without, obviously, application understands it. So that's where it would return basically a complete list of users and and first names and last names, just simply because 0 equals 0 is true. So the condition is true and it's returning all first names and last names. So that's how SQL injection works. To protect it, obviously, we have to make sure that we have proper controls on the parameter that we are accepting data for. So if this is going to be an integer parameter, there is no need for those text or letters to be there. So we just accept any integer number. That's how we could fix basically this. So some of the other basically commands that you could use, I'm not just gonna go through all of those, but you can definitely just go ahead and test this on your DVWA. So we could just display database version, could display database user, we could display database name, or we could display user tables, all of the tables, and we could display basically all the fields in users table, including their password. So if you know how to do it and you know more complex commands. So this might be multiple steps that you have to go, get the database name first and get the table names after, and then obviously look at the usernames within those tables, possibly get the hash copy of the passwords from the table, and then obviously you could try to crack those hash passwords somewhere else. So that's in a nutshell how SQL injection works. On the next video, we're going to talk about cross-site scripting, or XSS. Thank you for watching this video, and I will be with you on the next one.